As a child, I would fall asleep to the hum of planes flying low overhead and awaken to the crashing sound of their takeoff. Not the planes you see from the terminal windows, but the military kind. Jets with pointy beaks and gigantic propellers that spring to life with a roar. My father was a military chaplain. My mother was a teacher. Our childhood was one unending zigzag as we followed my father from post to post. Every time we upped and moved, I'd bid a tearful goodbye to any friends I had managed to make, step out the front door of a familiar home, and walk off into yet another hazy horizon. Planes fascinated me. Climbing into the cockpit with his flight plan at the ready, the pilot knew where he was heading. He knew how to get there, and he always returned to his exact same starting point. He had it all figured out. The coolest thing was watching the flight jets fly in formation. Pirouetting across the skies, they flew shoulder to shoulder in airborne precision, never stopping, through multiple twists and turns and heart-stopping maneuvers. Head to tail and side by side they formed diamonds, arrowheads, arches, and ribbons, forging through the clouds without ever losing their place in the crowd. Perfect harmony. I was halfway through first grade when we first moved back to the USA, and I joined a class of kids in a Borough Park cheder. This is what a bomber pilot must feel like when he's shot out of formation and ejected right over a jungle, I thought. I knew no one. I knew nothing. I was lost. That was just the first in a sequence of moves. Soon we moved to Lakewood, and a short few years later I was transferred yet again. It was to a new school that had just opened. With no 7th grade yet in place, I was bumped into the 8th. New faces, new teachers, new textbooks, a whole new route to walk to school. Deeper and deeper I marched into the jungle thicket. All around me was thick, prickly foliage and the frightening prowl of hungry beasts. Over and over I told them my name. Over and over I related my story. Over and over I learned the names of new teachers and picked up new rules and tried to fit in. Over and over and over. One day the Rebbe posed the bombshell of Akasha. Looking expectantly out over our heads, he waited for someone to toss back an answer. Excited but nervous, I sort of raised my hand. I had an answer, yet I wasn't sure I was ready to share it. The Rebbe heard me out, then frowned. I recoiled in shock as his face contorted and he exploded in anger. What utter nonsense! It's a ridiculous solution! You're wasting your time and ours! My hand remained securely on my desk for the rest of my school years. I slashed my way through the dark jungle undergrowth, groping at tree trunks and trying to make headway. But I kept going around in circles. I couldn't get my bearings. I was lost. Ours was a large family, and I wasn't the only one sent spinning by these transitions. Horrified, I watched one day as my eldest brother Mo turned up in tattered jeans and a hoop in his nose. No yarmulke. It took just days before Yankee, who followed him around like a starry-eyed groupie, walked in with a similar getup. Cigarette smoke trailed behind my brothers. Unsavory friends knocked at our door. They sat at our Shabbos table, cracking jokes about Moses and all things sacred, and the rest of my siblings were stunned into silence. These stinging acts of rebellion left me feeling dry-mouthed and breathless. I was overwhelmed by a pervasive sense of impending doom. Now, home was a jungle too. Its dense, noxious undergrowth reached right into my bedroom, as I became consumed with doubts and anxieties. I would lie awake at night watching giant tarantulas spin silvery, sticky webs right across the moonlit window and wonder, will we lose Mo and Yankee forever? Am I going to end up just like them? Will our world fall off its axis if someone dies of an overdose? Craving peace, I would bury my head beneath a pillow and try to hum myself to sleep, but nothing could shut out the sad reality. I desperately wanted to charge through my brother's charades and shatter the senses back to normalcy, but I couldn't think of a single thing that would register on their radar. The utter helplessness was agony. My confusion only grew as I entered adolescence and found myself staring down a two-pronged path. One way dazzled me with a firework display of mutinous fun, drink, drugs, dizzying parties that felt like freedom. The other path meandered off into a cloudy distance. Its signposts signaled a plodding obedience, hard work, and what else exactly? I couldn't spell it out no matter how hard I tried. I still did not know where I was heading. I did not know where I wanted to be. All I knew was that behind my brother's swagger and dope-drenched existence lay haunted hearts and sad, deflated dreams. I chose the path of the highest resistance, a high road I hoped would lead to an everlasting peace. I had a long way to go. The summer after 8th grade, my family made Aliyah. On the very first day at my new yeshiva, I sat in class when the new Rebbe walked in and belted out a welcoming speech. "How nice to see you boys, ready to steig, all dressed for the part, clean white shirts, no sneakers." My sneaker-clad feet were stretched out beneath my desk. I quickly drew my legs back beneath my chair before he could catch sight of my contraband footwear. I remained in that yeshiva throughout my high school years, the longest I had ever remained in one place, and yet, from the very get-go, I was a nebulously shaped peg squeezed into a painfully square hole. Back in the USA, despite our frequent relocations, I had been able to pull hundreds and A's with ease. But now, my grades went into a downward spiral as I struggled with the language and Israeli study methods. I rarely raised my hand in class. All along, I felt like a silly American misfit. Whether my perspective was true or not, that was how I felt. In Israel, we no longer lived near an army base, and my fascination with planes slowly subsided. But another took its place. Before, my sights were set on the heavens. Now my nose was glued to the ground. When home on vacation, I would spend hours in our backyard lying on my stomach and observing armies of ants as they felt their way across mounds of earth, going about their business. Here too, as with the flight squadron, law and order reigned supreme. I was enthralled by the systematic perfection, its sublime exquisiteness. Every tiny creature was out on a mission. Grain gatherer, nest builder, cleaner, queen. But as for myself, I still couldn't figure out who I was and where I wanted to be. My one thread of comfort was a small group of friends that I slowly discovered. However estranged I was from the staff of my school, my friends meshed around me with a solidarity that meant the world. But to the staff, I always felt like nothing but a maddening oddball in their carefully constructed playing field. Any compliment they flung me, I interpreted as backhanded, as if they were astonished I had managed to deserve one. "Oh, wow, so you actually managed to make the grade." With my self-esteem in the dumps, I teetered on the edge of convention, and twice I came close to being kicked out of the yeshiva. Of all my experiences, however, the bitterness of one particular incident, harking back to my childhood, lingers with me more than others. "You're wanted in the principal's office," they said. What this time? I thought, as I rolled my eyes and dragged myself up 2 flights of stairs. My gum-chewing habit, my midnight soccer, my father's old army hoodie I'd worn to school. But nothing prepared me for the tirade that followed. "You know I've reached a resounding conclusion," said the principal, poker-faced. "You, young man, you are the root of all our troubles. You, with your comic books and your Meshuggah notions, you drag this institution down." I don't think I even managed to blink. I was so shocked by his assault. I did little studying after that. When I finally packed my rucksack and walked away from that school, I knew one thing with a passion. I was going to be the one guy, the one mechanech, who spoke to kids with genuine respect. After long slogging years of boredom and disenchantment, without knowing exactly how I'd realize my high aspirations, I finally reached the one yeshiva that was right for me. Here was a place where no one cared whether I wore sneakers or brogues. Here the Rebbeim cared only whether I had a smile on my face, and whether I was experiencing the joy of understanding the sugya. Suddenly I was flying. Vast blue skies were mine for the taking. I was a pilot on a mission, charting a route full of promise, soaring towards a meaningful future. As I flew, I took care to maintain my position, never forgetting my goal, never allowing myself to lose sight of the map. As a class Rebbe, as a counselor, and later as a mentor for troubled teens, I have been granted many opportunities to hold true to my promise. One particular young man left a lasting impact. His school had sent him packing, his parents were sure he would never grow up, and he was wandering the city streets, aimless, angry, and frustrated. I met him at an after-school alternative study program that I was running for the municipality. Someone had convinced him to walk through the door. My challenge was to make him stay. He wore cracked spectacles and his nose was funny. It had probably been broken in a brawl, but there was something that endeared him to me in an instant, a sense of heightened confusion and surprising innocence. The more I got to know him, the more parallels I drew between us. I was determined that this boy would turn his life around. But how do you draw a ship into harbor when it's floundering on high waves in a storm? He joined the program, he studied a bit, but finding it hard, he dropped out and said goodbye. We pulled him gently back in, like a fish in a net, persuading him to try and swim some more. He tried and swam away, so we called him back again and again. His parents had waved from the shore and promptly turned their backs. They felt it was silly to waste money where it wouldn't make a difference and refused to pay for his studies. But we kept hurling the net at this boy. We cajoled him in with loving patience. And eventually we found a sponsor for his tuition. I believe that is when he began to swim in earnest. Here was someone who believed in him enough to put good money on the table, and people who cared enough to find that sponsor. He swam, and even though he frequently had to come up for air, in the end he made the distance. When he was old enough, he joined the army. At his induction ceremony, he was sworn into the same elite fighting unit where I had served during my time in the IDF. And feeling emotional right down to my gut, I handed him my old, worn beret as a symbol of all we had fought for together. This boy's past will never be forgotten, but his future is promising. Today, he is a family man with kids of his own. He holds a steady job and embraces life with enthusiasm. Whenever we meet, which happens once in a while, he never fails to remind me how we refuse to allow him to sink to the depths. And where am I today? Rebbe, counselor, mentor and educational developer for troubled youth. I am flying in formation with a team that truly cares. And while I have weathered turbulence along the way, my goal has remained unchanged. Today, with Hashem's everlasting kindness, I look in the mirror and I like what I see. I have become that person I wanted to be, a man on a mission to change the world, one child's world at a time.